I was a born sinner, surging with strong urges since the age of 6. My sister, however, was at the opposite end of the spectrum from me, favoring her as the clear shadow of the moon in everyone's eyes and the pillar of my heart. I was imprisoned by my mother in a secret room for 10 long years, and only my sister would occasionally come to visit me. However, 10 years later, my sister was carried home covered in blood, her face ruined. My mother opened my chains for the first time, and surprisingly she said in an angry tone, "I want you to destroy all those who bully your sister." In the Great Jan, a twin child is an unknown being. My mother built a secret room after we were born, alternating between my sister and I to appear in front of people. But this situation was broken when I was 6 years old. When I was 6, I looked at the bunny I had kept for 2 years and suddenly developed a desire to explore it. I took a hairpin and disemboweled it, holding its mutilated body and smilingly showing it to my mother. My mother fainted in horror, and when she woke up she took a whip and lashed me all over my body, but I didn't feel any pain. I just stared at her indifferently. "Monster, you monster!" I was locked up by my mother in a dark chamber for a month of introspection. During this month I touched the bloodstained hairpin in boredom, and only my sister would come to visit me with good food and fun. But I wasn't interested in these. I took her hand and said with bright eyes, "Sister, catch me rabbits to play with again. Okay?" Sister's face went white. She forced herself to calm down and asked me, "Why did Junior open the bunny's belly?" "Because I touched its belly and it was jumping. I wanted to see what was jumping," said. I naively said, "So then maybe our Junior is a natural healer," Sister said with a gentle smile. "Only observing the body structure of small animals can be read. Sister, next time I come to bring you books to read." I froze, sizing up this sister of mine as if she were looking at some new object. She was the first person who didn't call me a monster, but understood why I was doing what I was doing. I wanted to say that I wasn't trying to be a healer, but her smile was so fragile that I could only swallow the words of explanation. Then my mother let me out with a soft heart, but the first thing I did when I got out was poke my personal maid's eye out with a hairpin. Sister is soft and uncaring, but that doesn't mean I am too. During the month I was away, she chewed on my sister behind her back and called her a monster, and even got talismanic water and incense ash that she didn't know where to get for my sister to eat. Except for mother and her beloved sisters and maids, no one knew that my sister and I were two people. They only thought that it was my sister who killed the rabbit. As she bent down to bring me a bowl of spiced bird's nest, I drew the hairpin from my hair and stuck it in her eye. It was so funny that it broke with a bang. The bowl of bird's nest was carelessly poured into her black eyes by me. "Your reward." Mother was thoroughly frightened, and she had her beloved sister tie me up and throw me into a mass grave, saying, "I don't have such a monster daughter. No wonder people say that twins are unknown. It turns out that one of them will be a monster that doesn't understand human nature. From now on I have only one daughter, Jane Lawn." But 3 days later, I came back in tattered clothes and covered in blood, holding the hairpin that had been stained with blood over and over again. In my mother's eyes, I was like an evil ghost that had crawled back from hell, and this evil ghost grinned openly and said with a sweet smile, "Mother, I'm hungry." After that, my mother tried many times to kill me, but each time it would fail, not to mention that my sister would inexplicably have a high fever and vomit. Even when my life was in danger, my sister would breathe weakly. My mother couldn't let go of this normal daughter, and finally had to compromise, like chaining me up in a secret room. Later I realized that it was my sister's attempt to protect me by pouring cold water on herself in the winter and eating allergic food, which nearly killed her several times. This lock was for 10 years. My mother didn't come to see me once in 10 years, only my sister would come. She was afraid that I would be bored, so she brought me a lot of talking books and bought a bunch of other books. She was also afraid that I was afraid of the dark, and gave me a night pearl that she had saved up half a year's money to buy. My sister would teach me to read and write, sing to me, and even if I went crazy and bit her, she wouldn't get mad. Aside from the little boy I met at the mass grave, sister was the only one who was willing to understand me. I touched the jade pendant that little boy had given me, and kind of missed the time when the two of us had killed together. But I preferred spending time with my sister. The bloodlust factor in me would be smoothed out. This time, however, I waited a month for my sister. The door to the chamber was opened and my mother, whom I hadn't seen in 10 years, walked in. Her face was haggard, and her eyes were covered with blood, and said, "Your sister, she had an accident." My sister on the bed was unconscious, her hair shaved, her face covered with bone-deep scars, her fingers all broken. I calmly asked, "Who did this?" That's when I realized what my gentle sister had really been through, being teased by 3 high-powered men. I smiled icily and said, "Mother, you can't not know what it means to put me out, can you?" Mother tore her handkerchief, and in her eyes was piercing hatred, saying, "I want the person who bullied my Laner. 2D. So I silently turned into my sister Yi Jianlan. When my sister came back, she didn't let anyone in her room except for the doctor, my mother, and sister Xia. I spent a month turning my figure and physique into the same as my sister's. We were originally twins with the same looks, and she came to the secret room to teach me everything my sister had learned. I gathered the coldness between my brows and eyes, and at first glance, even my mother would be in a trance for a moment thinking I was my sister. However, this is not enough. My sister's guardian sand was gone. Your father knew, but forced me to play deaf and dumb with him for the sake of his career. The tonic her mother boiled for her father had chronic poison added to it. Father was originally just a 5th-rank chief historian, relying on his sister to rise all the way to 2nd-rank Songjin. The 3rd prince Duan Yen had lost his mother at a young age and was born with a love for gentle, kind women, in other words a maternal nature. He was saved by his sister who went to a temple to worship Buddha when he was assassinated, and her careful care for a few days gave Duan Yen an illusion. He thought this was the gentle, virtuous and radiant true love he was looking for. Duan Yen wanted to marry his sister as a consort, but she was unwilling to do so, so he thought he was being underestimated. In addition, his sister was close to Louis Ji, the son of the imperial minister, so he sneaked into his sister's boudoir under the heat of jealousy. These Tianheng nobles have always been lawless and accustomed to, plus he is still the favorite candidate to seize the throne. Father will turn a blind eye, as if he hitched a ride on the 3rd prince of this big ship. I expressionlessly plucked out the palace sand with a knife. This knife that plucked out the flesh was received by me in a brocade box, and one day I will use it on Duan Yen. Just gouging out the flesh is not enough. My sister's waist was also branded with a lotus mark by Wei Tingshu, the son of the Marquis of Xinyuan, with a branding iron. Sister has always had a reputation for talent. She is proficient in zither, chess, calligraphy and painting. Her talent is no worse than that of a man, but she is not proud of her talent. Even the Empress had complimented her character and appearance, and she had captured the hearts of I don't know how many talented men with her self-composed zither score, asked the heart. Such a perfect and excellent sister attracted the covetousness of wealthy wolves. Wei Tingshu likes to destroy beautiful things. I similarly branded a lotus flower on my waist. After I could no longer see the cracks, I lived back in my sister's Li Xiang Yuan. Sister's personal maid Linger's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise when she saw me. It's only been a few months and you don't recognize me anymore? I said with a gentle smile after my sister's fashion. Linger lowered her head and mumbled, "It's just that I think Miss is a few points more beautiful than before." Miss, Duke Lu learned that you have recovered greatly and invited you to meet him at Springview House. Louis Ji, the dynastic flower scout, was also sister's confidant. Sister's affair with Wei Tingshu and Duan Yen wasn't said to be widely spread, right? But the upper echelons had all more or less heard about it. They don't understand how my sister was bullied and humiliated. They just see my sister maneuvering between 2 noble men. Her body is gone and still put on a proud and holy look. They think she's being a whore but still standing up a house of cards. Privately, the noble women mocked her as a government whore. Only Louis Ji, who admired his sister's talent, even defended her when she was falsely accused of stealing other people's poems. Gentle and refined, respectful of women, he sounds like a true gentleman. But I didn't miss the blush that floated up on Linger's face when she mentioned him, and a lake of spring water swirled in her eyes.